Good morning, Destiny players! It's only a week until Edge of Fate arrives, and Bungie is making a heck of a lot of changes to the game. This video will cover quite a good amount of the changes of the game, as new stuff is pretty self-explanatory. This is just about the changes. I am Bladeburger, your local antiquity age is coming to an end kind of guy. These changes are discussed in no particular order except for the first one. Stay tuned until the end for my own personal thoughts on the changes, because you all totally asked my opinion. Make sure to do the goodies that the algorithm demands, and let's get into the video. Background footage is just me mucking about in Explorer Dungeons. It's nothing major. The first big change, and probably one of the biggest changes in the game's existence, is the portal. No longer are activities split up into the Helm area and all the nodes absolutely everywhere, making it difficult to find things, but concentrated into one place, with nodes on what to play and specific loot being dropped from said activities. It's split into a few sections: Solo Ops, Fireteam Ops, Pinnacle Ops, and the Crucible. It's not entirely replacing the old Destinations tab, but acts more of as an extension to direct you into activities quicker. It's meant to also make grinding more streamlined, with some activities having featured loot drops for the day, like arms, cloaks, and so on. Old activities are also returning as a part of this, with Savathûn Spire coming back in Edge of Fate. And finally, the DCV is actually serving its purpose. Now let's talk the categories discussed earlier: Solo Ops, Fireteam Ops, Pinnacle Ops, and the Crucible. Solo Ops are mostly smaller activities, like modified lost sectors, but you can add a ton of modifiers to increase your score and loot drops. Each modifier changes your score threshold, and you can make it super insane on yourself for good loot, or a total pushover for not so good loot. These score thresholds also do scale with your power level, so as you get higher power, you don't have to place as many modifiers on yourself as you did prior. Fireteam Ops is like the old seasonal hub thing where you go to find activities with matchmaking enabled. These will have preset modifiers on them from what we've seen. It's also a place where old seasonal activities are returning, like Savathûn Spire, the old season of the Hunt activity, I honestly can't remember what it's called because it was so bad, and more down the line. Additionally, older activities have been reworked and changed to fit into the system, like Empire Hunts, where they just added champions and Briggs with a billion health. Pinnacle Ops is for all your hard stuff. Grandmasters and expert level stuff reside here, including old exotic missions. The Crucible section is for Crucible stuff. With a new power system, which will be talked about in a bit, you can level up to max with just Crucible, which is neat for the people who like Crucible. Not for me though, I'm a Gambit main. Man. The portal will also be where the new expansion content can be accessed. Kepler won't be in the Worlds tab, but only in the portal. With the portal being meant to direct players to content to play faster, it makes sense to me. The next big change number 2, is the complete removal of vendor reputation. No more grinding ranks at Zavala, Saint, Rahul, or Old Drifter anymore. The engrams from each vendor have also been deprecated, instead being changed to favor the portal system. The only vendor with rep when Edge of Fate launches will be Hawthorne. Maybe Pale Heart might have some? I don't know. The new exotics with Edge of Fate can only be unlocked from the legendary campaign, as there's no more Rahul reputation. How will older exotics be unlocked? The world may never know. Bungie hasn't been exactly clear on what will replace the engrams that give additional drops and ability to focus exact gear you want, so we'll have to see. The only thing we do know is that Onslaught gear will be moving to Xur. Big change number 3, the tier system, armor and weapons. When Edge of Fate launches, each new weapon will have 5 different tiers, and same with all non-exotic armor, tier 5 being the best. For weapons, the tiers are split like so, with Adepts today being the equivalent to tier 3 weapons next week. Your loot won't be useless when Edge of Fate drops, as a really bad tier 5 roll is still worse than your current god roll. For armor, the tiers are stat-based, with tier 5s being able to roll in the 70s. Stat distribution was also changed, as I'll discuss in a bit. The best armor will be tier 5s, as they also get new bonuses, including the ability to tune stats, which essentially means you can just go +5, -5 to things, similar to Artifice Armor today where you can select a stat to get the bonus. Armor is more subject to replacement with Edge of Fate, as they will also have set bonuses for 2 and 4 pieces, as well as higher capability for spiky stat distributions. You are much more likely to swap your armor out rather than your weapons when Edge of Fate drops. To get to these higher tiers, you'll need to go through the portal. Using modifiers and upping your grade threshold, you can get higher tier loot to be what's rewarded alongside its power level being higher. This goes for both weapons and armor, so if there's a certain piece of gear you're chasing, it can rotate daily in for you to get the power boost to that slot. Speaking of power, the next big change is the power system. Frankly, I don't fully understand it, but I'll try to explain what I understand. To start, power is being squished in Edge of Fate, going from 2020 as the max all the way down to 10 power to start. The new max will be 200, and then seasonal power goes up to 450. Seasonal power, similar to the current artifact power, is temporary and will go away when Renegades launches. This isn't like artifact power in the sense that it requires EXP to go up, but for this time it's gear power, so you can get 250 additional power temporarily for 3 months. When Ashen Iron launches in September, another 100 levels will be added to make the season top up to 550. A very large power climb, but one that can be done much easier and with less RNG. The only downside is that when Renegades launches, you'll be set back to 200. Upgrade modules are being deprecated as there is a new infusion currency that will also be removed at the end of each season to stop hoarding or something. As with the new tier system, leveling is done through the portal and through the modifier system. Tiered loot will drop with a power bump in accordance to their tier, so a tier 2 will drop to power above your current power. Confusing to explain, but I'm sure it'll play a lot clearer when it launches. Let's now talk about stat reworks, the next big change with Edge of Fate. To sum it up, stats are being entirely reworked. No longer will it be based on a set of 10 tiers, but instead it will be a gradual increase as a stat gets higher. Additionally, mobility, resilience, and recovery are being totally deprecated, with set amounts being given instead. When Edge of Fate launches, mobility will be set to the equivalent of 30 for Titans and Warlocks, and 40 for Hunters, which in my humble opinion is way too low for Hunters. I personally am used to rocking 70 mobility. Resilience will be set to the equivalent of 100 for all classes, and the recovery stat will be set to equivalent of 70 for all classes. These 3 stats are being replaced with new stats, as are the rest of the remaining stats. Mobility is becoming weapons, which buffs weapon damage. Resilience is becoming health, aka the new dump stat that just increases health gains from all sources and increases your maximum health, similar to how resilience worked before its previous buff. The other 3 stats are pretty similar in function. Strength becoming melee, increasing melee energy gains from all sources and increasing your melee damage. Discipline to grenade, and intellect to super works the same way, increases energy gains and damage as you go higher. Above 100 in a stat is when you start getting the higher damage for the ability based ones. The new stat cap is 200, which seems tricky, but stat rolls will be higher, more spiky, and has a bit more support to get higher, except exotics. Exotics can only roll up to 63 base, which is terrible. Hence why people are right now farming for exotic rolls, as the new exotics will just be worse. Another stat change is the way armor rolls. Each armor piece, including exotics and also class items, but not the exotic class items, will be split into 6 archetypes. These archetypes will consist of a primary, secondary, and a tertiary stat. The primary and secondaries are set, but the tertiary is random. On a tier 5, the primary stat will be around 30, the secondary around 20, and the tertiary will be around 10. When masterworked, you get 3 to each other stat that isn't the 3 main ones. Not sure if it applies to all or just tier 5. Comments, let me know. Exotic class items will always be randomized for its primary, secondary, and tertiary though, as they don't align to any stat archetype. Now we're over halfway through, the next big change is the sandbox. Every season we get a big overhaul that shakes up the meta, a bunch of nerfs, buffs, reworks, and the 80th Blight Ranger buff in a row. Each class got a number of buffs to exotics, including Path of the Burning Steps, Blight Ranger, Mask of Akris, Blight Ranger, Starfire Protocol, and Blight Ranger to name a few. Can you tell I absolutely hate that Blight Ranger gets buffed every single season and it is still bad? Anyways, the main notable buff to abilities is that melee buffs are now additive instead of multiplicative, which seems like an overall buff. They did also buff a ton of melee abilities, from Liar's Handshake to Blight Ranger, this is a joke, to Knockout to even Banner of War. Titan Dominance for a 10th year in a row, anyone? Hey, at least Blight Ranger got buffed again. Why yes, I'm salty about it. This sandbox overhaul was a lot lighter this time around than most, as I feel like Bungie is more seeing how stat rework will go in combination with some of the changes. The lucky 7th change when Edge of Fate launches is to events. Events were previously just a front to sell cosmetics through the event pass, but that event pass is gone. Now there's a free pass where you can complete daily and weekly challenges to progress through the event. There will still be the usual 4 events per year, Dawning, Guardian Games, Festival, and Solstice, but there will be new events like Heavy Metal and Arms Week, among others that haven't been announced. I anticipate that when Iron Banner returns in Ashen Iron, it will get the same event treatment. Just a hunch. These events will also have tiered loot and even shiny loot similar to what we got in Into the Light and Ride of the Nine. We only have seen the Solstice shiny so far, but we may see others as we get into the next 3-month section of the year. For change number 8, the expansion cycle. Instead of one big expansion and multiple seasons or episodes throughout the year, we have 2 medium-sized expansions with big updates in the middle of said expansions. The current slate is Edge of Fate in a week, Ashen Iron Major update in September, the Renegades expansion in December, and the Law & Order major update sometime next year. The major updates will be supposedly the size of Into Light, with Ashen Iron bringing the Plaguelands back. With this change to expansion comes change number 9, a new saga. Storytelling will be much different in the saga, called the Fate Saga. With Edge of Fate, the story will be non-linear and feature several side quests that develop characters more. They can be completed in any order and serve as more ways to tell the story. With these smaller expansions, Bungie is being more experimental in their story delivery. We could see a new shakeup in Renegades and the expansions after. Speaking of story, there's also new difficulties available to play the story. There's the usual normal and legendary, but there's also higher difficulties after you beat the campaign a first time. A new game plus, if you will. Legendary is the only way to get initial drops of the new exotics, but the higher difficulties can drop higher tier weapons armor, and the highest rewards a unique variant of the Kepler Destination armor with a different set bonus and cosmetic. You bet your sweet bippy I'm going for that. The 10th and final big change I could think of are the changes to the Season Pass, now called the Reward Pass. In essence, it's very similar. You have a Battle Pass that has a ton of useless currency and masterwork levels, it has 2 armor sets, an ornament set, and a few golf balls. The new pass has 110 levels instead of the past 100 or even 200, but these last 10 levels require 5 times the EXP and are full of exotics and have a helmet like the episodes did. Speaking of that, does anyone actually wear the helmets though? I never see anyone with the episode pass helmets. There also seems to be the usual 4 passes per year according to the Ultimate Edition pre-orders. So there's the 10 biggest changes I could think of off the top of my head for Edge of Fate. Now, my own personal thoughts. The TLDR of all of my thoughts is that we'll just have to see how it goes. The portal, power system, tier system, and progression seem extremely confusing on paper. Are Pathfinders still around? Do they give good power boosts? What all is transferring to the new power system? Old raids, gambit weapons? Is there a ritual weapon? Can we get rare higher tier drops and base difficulty activities? If we do all the power grind in Crucible, can we get tier 5s in Crucible? Why did Blight Ranger get buffed again, and the buff didn't actually target? What's wrong with the exotic? Too many questions I don't quite have the answer to, and I'm not sure many people have the answer to either. I am a fan of the tier system, as it's just better loot, but in reality I don't see myself engaging with it outside of armor. Class items getting stats is really nice though. Not sure why legendary class items aren't randomized too, like the exotic ones. Speaking of the weapon tiers, until there's a 900 RPM SMG with repulsor and destabilizing, I don't see myself replacing my recluse. Until there's a 900 with Volt Shot, I don't see myself replacing my Subjunctive. I really like 900 SMGs, can you tell? Class items seem like the priority for replacement though, as new traps will have stats. Weapons I could care less about. In due time, I will probably replace my whole loadout, but I'm not pressed to replace everything immediately, especially since tier 5s will take time to get. As for the event passes, why don't they follow the new industry trend and just make them never expire? A huge thing I hated with older seasons, and even the episodes, was this rush to finish the pass so you don't miss out on the loot within, like the cosmetics. I've gotten every single pass since they started up to level 100, and some of them I've absolutely hated to max out, like Revenant's pass and Worthy's passes. The worst part is that they're not really worth the awful grind. The episodes had 200 levels, but maybe 10 to 15 actually had something good. The old seasons with 100 levels also maybe had 10 levels that are worth the time sink. Not sure how much will change with this one unless the armor provided it has really good rolls and the cosmetics look absolutely amazing like the Season of the Undying. Also, again, what's with the helmet ornament? The 3 we've received from the episodes don't even look good. I'm rambling too much about the rewards pass. I hope I'm wrong and that the pass is actually good though. More useful stuff, not just +1 the masterwork levels of X armor piece like seasons past. For the expansion changes, I'm actually pretty positive on that. Expansions always tend to be on the grindier parts of the year and always packed with a ton to do. Final Shape had me occupied for quite some time. This expansion doesn't have any class additions, but there's a ton of secrets in depth that'll keep my attention, I'm hoping. I am iffy on the mid-season content drops like Ash and Iron, however, as they said they'll be into light-sized. They also said that about Rite of the Nine, and while I very much enjoyed Rite of the Nine, it really didn't have too much to offer. 3 dungeons with tweaked mechanics and a solo-friendly mode is incredible, but it's not into light-sized. I saw Rite of the Nine as more closer to Pantheon size, which was contained within Into the Light, rather than the whole of Into the Light. The Playgrounds returning is definitely exciting, and it will set the standard for these major updates. If it's a Season of the Haunted type deal, like Leviathan returning, I'll actually be okay with the Playgrounds. This content no longer gets cycled out of the game, so it's fine. The only cycling will be the older seasonal activities in the portal, which means the DCV is finally achieving its purpose. It's only been years and years and years, and we're finally getting content out of the DCV. When the Menagerie comes back, it'll probably be the only thing I'll play, if I'm going to be honest. As for Sandbox, I'm really confused. There's a lot of baffling changes. Like, number 1, just removing an anti-champion capability from Stasis. Like, Stasis is already the worst subclass in the game right now, but it's just being even worse. Now to get to the meta, every time something has been meta for Hunter or Warlock to the point where it's bad to run the other classes, it gets absolutely nuked. Remember Celestial and Still Hunt? That lasted all of 3 weeks before it got gutted. Like Chaos Reach and the new buff to Iona Traces of the Delicate Tomb, yeah, that's getting nerfed with Edge of Fate. No one watches this far into videos, so time to complain about Titans and the meta again. You see, the meta in Heresy was Storm's Keep, Storm's Keep, Storm's Keep, Storm's Keep, and Storm's Keep. The meta in Edge of Fate is probably going to be the same, because Storm's Keep just got away with a mere slap on the wrist, as is common with Titan dominant metas. Banner of War got a slap on the wrist, and it's still extremely good, better than all Hunter and Warlock melee strategies. Consecration also got a slap on the wrist, it'll still be incredibly strong. The best thing to run in the game, Storm's Keep, will continue to be the best thing in the game. Just a little side note, the Salvation's Edge raid race did incalculable damage to the sandbox by just putting the Witness about 5 feet away from Titans. Hunters can only have a good thing for 3 weeks, while Titans get actual years to be the meta. It's okay, guys. Blight Ranger got buffed again. Fucking hell. All in all, this expansion is shaping up to be a huge shift in the game, bringing the grind back, rewarding players with better gear for harder things, but at the moment it seems really confusing to look at from the outside. I wasn't invited out to Bungie like a bunch of other creators, as I only have 1,500 followers on this channel, so I didn't get to experience the expansion hands-on. I get to experience it with everyone else on the 15th. I will definitely try to stream day 1 if I can. So there are the 10 biggest changes to Edge of Fate that I could think of off the top of my head, and my own thoughts on some of it. Thank you all for coming and watching, and stay tuned for more. Bladeburger, out.